the power of synchronicity in transforming. While the modern mind generally considers the principle of synchronicity to be silly and superstitious and so on, there are more people taking it seriously than ever before. Interestingly, the concept itself, while ancient in some traditions, is quite new to those of us in the West. The accepted definition of synchronicity is when two seemingly unrelated events appear to have great significance to an individual. They leave us with a sense that there might be some connection with the divine or whatever force exists in the universe that is asking us to pay attention and recognize something of personal value or importance. In addition, many divinatory systems have synchronicity as their basis, such as the tarot, I Ching, and of course astrology. The person who revived this the most in the 20th century was Dr. Carl Jung, who based many of his theories and conclusions on this principle. He also famously wrote an introduction to the Wilhelm Baynes version of the I Ching, as well as writing a book named Synchronicity, an A-Causal Connecting Principle, which is essentially a book describing the efficacy of astrology. There's another significant association worth mentioning, given some of the topics I'll be speaking about in future videos. Jung was the therapist for the famous quantum physicist Wolfgang Pauli, who consulted with Jung during a personal crisis in his life after his mother's suicide and divorce. After this period, Pauli began collaborating with Jung on the significance of dreams and especially on synchronicity. Pause for a moment to consider what it might mean for a renowned quantum physicist, a colleague of Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, to be responsible for some of the most important discoveries made in this newly developing field. What he and Jung basically advocated for is that whether it be through the doorway of quantum physics or by a deep analysis of dreams and other archetypal systems that rely on the principle of synchronicity for their validity, is that these ideas point to a deeper reality and a cosmic order governing life itself. Further, synchronicities themselves can reveal the workings of our reality. This is one of the first times in human history when the mystic and the scientist began to truly merge, a movement that is continuing to grow to this day. Now let's get to the basics. Astrology fundamentally asserts that the map of where the planets are at the time and place of one's birth becomes one's basic nature and describes the very law of one's being in the world. All transits, progressions, and returns are mathematically derived from one's birth chart. In other words, one cannot seriously validate astrology without assuming that the principle of meaningful coincidence is real. And if it is real in the system of astrology, it's going to be real in other significant ways as well. When I began studying astrology many years ago, one of the motivations for my interest was to see if the principle of synchronicity was valid. Because if it is, then one's entire understanding of the universe must change fundamentally. However, for one's consciousness to change by studying astrology, it must be regarded as a starting point only. One must gradually experience it as one sees its efficacy in one's own chart as well as in those of others. Also, as this series of transpersonal astrology videos will show, other new concepts must be applied in an integrated way to see how profoundly it extends us to new ways of experience ourselves and the world. The notion of cause and effect itself becomes questioned. We assume that our life is completely interpreted by cause and effect. If I do such and such will happen. Synchronicity challenges this assumption fundamentally and replaces it with a sense of awe and mystery. It's not that cause and effect is completely wrong. In many cases, it's how we learn and adapt to our world. We must operate within it in order to live. But the moment we realize that it's not a total explanation, something must change within us. How much control do we actually have? Is life inevitably more mysterious than we believed? Does this make us uncomfortable? Or might it inspire us to discover more? By not taking for granted that we're in control, might it open us up to those forces that are intended to enlighten and enliven us? Might it help us become more alert in every moment and see what we're being shown? I realize one might try to explain this phenomenon through religion. But perhaps the most important thing of all is to be willing to rest in the mystery and be open to its guidance without any personification, and resist the temptation to use astrology to make concrete predictions, because that approach attempts to destroy the mystery we so desperately need in order to be able to feel alive and vital. It also leads us to realize we have the free will to live in this amazing mystery with increasing openness.